private finance. This is the final session, hosted in collaboration with the Food and Agriculture Organization with the Forest and Landscape Restoration Mechanism Community of Practice on Finance. All of the sessions and the summary of the whole challenge that has looked at private finance will be available at the end of this this session to summarize all of the learning challenge, together with all of the information and recordings as well. So if you missed some bits and you haven't been able to join some of the other sessions, don't worry, you have a chance to catch up. So just run through a few housekeeping bits. For those of you that would like French interpretation, please go down to the bottom of your Zoom. There is an interpretation button, and just click on that and click on the French. So that and there will also be French interpretation into the breakout groups as well. I think, Odisha, is that right? There'll be one French group?
Yeah, there'll be one in the main room.
One in the main room. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And any questions, technical issues as well, just put those in the chat, and there's a good supportive team from the lab and FAO to answer your questions. So as I'm just give you a brief housekeeping, please do put down in the chat your name, where you're coming from, you know, which landscapes you're working in, just so we can get an idea of who's here. But just also, if you could mute your microphone while you're listening so that we can hear what the speakers are saying. Any questions in the chat box, we'll answer them either during the breakouts, or there will be a chance to answer during some of the sessions as well. Summary notes will all be shared after the call, and only the beginning interviews will be recorded. So all of the questions and discussions in the breakout rooms, they won't be recorded. And feel free also to rename yourself, your name on the Zoom with your landscape name as well. So I'd just like to introduce this session. So this is going to be a World Cafe session to provide practitioners with direct discussion opportunities with 2 or 3 fund representatives, giving you an opportunity to discuss your challenges or the potential opportunities you have regarding to getting private finance opportunities for restoration specific activities in your landscape. I'd like to the first part of the session will be a few interviews with the 3 investors that we have to understand where they're coming from, what investments their funds make, and in what landscapes or for what activities. And there will be a chance for a few questions and answers before we then go into a World Cafe session with different breakout rooms in which you can move between. And then we will reconvene at the end and share key takeaways from all of us before we summarize and close up. So I'd like to introduce our three investors to the panels. We've got Rebecca Mincy, who is an investment director from Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund based in Nairobi. Rebecca has 10 years experience in agriculture and impacting investing and asset management, where she's led and made direct investments in the agribusiness sector in East and West Africa. And she's developed regional agricultural strategies and has expanded a portfolio that has already reached more than 5.4 million smallholder farmers and impacted 27 million lives across Rwanda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Uganda. I'd also like to introduce Patrick Balifi. He is a project manager at the Africa Cocoa Fund, based with Rainforest Alliance in Côte d'Ivoire, formerly at OLAM. He's now part of the Africa regional team at the Africa Cocoa Fund, which is a $5 million fund to support cocoa farmers and help preserve the local landscapes in West and Central Africa. So in this role, Patrick administers the Africa Cocoa Fund that covers Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Cameroon, and Nigeria. And he is a regional sustainability and certification expert with 14 years of experience in project management and evaluation, CSR, and certification projects. And finally, very happy to introduce Sanchian Chakraborty from Avishkar Capital. So he's a partner at Avishkar Capital and manages their South and Southeast Asia focused impact fund. So Sanchian leads their climate investment initiatives, including a specific focus on carbon credits and nature-based solutions. He has over 2 decades of experience in investment banking and fund management across Asia and the Middle East. And prior to joining Avishka Capital, he was a managing director at leveraging and acquisition finance at Standard Chartered Bank in India. So I am delighted to welcome all three of our investors, and would like to bring Rebecca to have a very brief interview and introduction questions, just to share a little bit more about who you are, what the Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund really focuses on, including sort of what activities are you funding, in particular in relation to forest and landscape restoration, the size of the fund, and summarising at the end just 2 key points to consider for project managers or for those on the ground to consider when investing, and what you consider when you invest in a programme. Please, the floor is yours. Welcome, Rebecca.
Sure, thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Rebecca Mincy. I'm with the Acumen Resilient Agriculture Fund, and we are a $58 million venture capital fund. We are anchored by the Green Climate Fund, and we are sponsored by Acumen, the well-known impact investor. We got started in 2019, and since then we've made about 10 investments. We are equity investors, and what we are really looking for, our investment thesis, is to invest in fast-growing agribusinesses that help smallholder farmers adapt to climate change. It's a bit of a mouthful, but basically we invest at the intersection of agriculture and climate change. We are looking for companies that provide bundled sets of solutions for smallholder farmers in both East and West Africa, specifically in Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, and Ghana. In addition to the equity that we invest in companies, we also have a technical assistance facility, which provides grant capital to our portfolio companies to help them with things like ESG consultants, piloting new projects, and we have a real focus on farmer training. Some of the types of companies that we've invested in so far include a solar irrigation company called Sunculture. Many of you may have heard of it. They design, assemble, install, finance, and provide after-sales support for solar irrigation solutions, again, in both East and West Africa. Another company that we have invested in is a company called Stable Foods. Stable Foods is a hub and spoke horticulture company based here in Kenya that basically works with about almost 1,000 smallholder farmers on regenerative agriculture practices for horticulture to be sold locally, and more recently in the domestic market. A really strong farmer training focus is kind of the really interesting part for us, because ultimately as investors, we're in the business of changing behavior and really getting farmers to adapt more climate smart practices while providing the stuff. And by stuff, that could be anything from the right collection centers to reduce post-harvest losses. It could be credit. It could be any number of things to help them to become better farmers. We also have Stable Foods in our portfolio, which provides irrigation as a service. And we have an ag tech company called Farmerline in our portfolio that basically aggregates farmer demand and aggregates offtake as well for various crops. True to our Acumen roots, we do measure impact, especially around climate resilience. We do keep, of course, operational metrics, but one of the things that's unique about our fund is that we do survey our farmers on an annual basis to see if they are increasing their climate resilience over time. Happy to go into greater detail about that if that's interesting to you. And you asked kind of 2 things. Hopefully that was short enough, Lucy. I think 2 things that kind of come to mind. What we're looking for is that we see working with smallholder farmers as a commercial imperative to businesses that we invest in. Some companies, we sometimes see companies that are not so committed to that. But the way that we see it, particularly as it relates to climate, we are encouraging our companies to invest in the climate resilience of their smallholder farmers, because as you can imagine, if your farmers aren't producing enough and aren't producing well because of changes in climate, you're not going to be able to process as much or sell as much. So we do see this, the climate part of it is not a nice to have. It's not a CSR component, but a real commercial part of the business. And we do look for companies who also see that. And I think that the other thing that is super important along the same lines is just really strong operations. For us, in order to, I mentioned earlier in passing, but it's quite true, we are in the business of changing farmer behavior. In order to do that, you have to build trust. In order to build trust, you need to have a really solid operations. Do what you say you're going to do so that farmers will trust you and will be more inclined to adopt new practices, to take the risk and buy that new solar irrigation system because they know that the company that they're working with is true to their word. So those are some of the things that come to mind. Happy to answer more questions later on. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. It sounds like a very diverse portfolio that you invest in, and a very strong climate focus with that. So I think if participants have some strong questions related to climate issues or how to link up with that, then very much drop into Rebecca's breakout group with that. Thank you very much, Rebecca. I'd like to also bring to the floor Patrick, please. Hi, Patrick. If you could just explain a little bit more about the African Cocoa Fund, where your fund priority areas are, in specific, what specific activities you're funding, the size of those funds, and bring out with 2 key points of consideration when investing in a program, please. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Lucy. Good morning, everyone. As you said, I'm Patrick, and I'm based currently in Côte d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, and I'm the project manager of the Africa Cocoa Funds. This fund is an internal fund set in place by Rainforest Alliance to support our certificate holder, members of the Rainforest Alliance standards. So we fund cooperative who are certified Rainforest Alliance, and the thematics that we work on, child labor, digitalizations, geolocations, mapping, and deforestations and landscape level issue. So the Africa Cocoa Funds has been set in place to support our farmer on those key topics. And among those key topics, we have to better align with, the thematics of these meetings. We have agroforestry, and in that area, we are supporting a lot of groups amongst 4 countries. West and Central Africa, especially we have Côte d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Nigeria, and Ghana. So before we select, a project, as I said, we need to be sure that you are part of the Rainforest Alliance members, meaning that you are certified Rainforest Alliance. Then, we study your proposal, and your proposals are evaluated based on 3 main criteria. I won't talk more about the criteria, but we have to know that those projects are very relevant and has a positive impact on the farmer and also the landscape, for example. So globally, after that checking, we select our best project. Then we have to approach, we go first for 100% of finance, so we support all the budget of the project. That is for the groups who have not a lot of support, who are not who don't have a lot of, means to implement the project and the certifications activities. So for them, we support 100% of their budget. Then we have also some, matching funds with some big company, over cooperative who have a lot of supports, and that was the case with some group. We take us, for example, who was a partner with in Ghana, then Wi-Fi in Nigeria, and also ATG, with whom we went for a matching fund. So this is, rapidly how we the two kind of groups that we are financing under the Africa Cocoa Funds. So we close all of the project with like you are doing now, a learning event to share lesson and challenge. And one of the good things that we want to put in first is the innovative project that we are having with one of our partners here, Meridia, which is doing, for example, a tree registration project with six cooperative. And these projects aim to, I want to say, to protect to protect trees in the farm, as one of the problem we are facing, farmers are facing, is that most of the trees are cutting without the permission, without the agreement. So we set in place this innovative project to help them to have the rights of the tree they are having on the farm. And this project concern 6 cooperative, and we want to register at the end of the project 100,000 of trees. And this is one of the things that one of the projects that we are doing with also the support of the government in Côte d'Ivoire. We have also many projects still in the area of reforestation, for example, bringing more trees in the farm as based on our certification requirements. So most of the applicants on the thematics of agroforestry look for planting tree in the farm, and also reforesting classified forest when they are they are closer to a classified forest. We have one project currently where we are trying to also reforest 20 hectares of forest in the classified forest of Nigre, for example. So this is a bit how we implementing the projects under the Africa Cocoa Fund. So globally, those projects are to support and to build the capacity of our smallholder who are certified rainforest, and also to tackle, the issue of landscape at the landscape level. Yeah. So I want to stop there, and also waiting for questions for more clarifications.
Thank you very much, Patrick. A very detailed description of how the Africa Cocoa Fund works. And as I say, if participants, if you have questions for any of our investors, then please do raise your hand. There'll be a chance after the final interview with Sanchan, but also, please feel free to put them in the chat as well. So thank you very much, Patrick. And finally, I would like to bring to the floor Sanchan from Avishka Capital to share with us a bit more in detail about who Avishka Capital is, what your fund priorities areas are, in particular, how you are supporting forest and landscape restoration, maybe where you're funding, and also what 2 key points of consideration when you're looking to invest in a program that you're looking for. With those, I think we've heard from Rebecca and Patrick that there are certain elements that they're looking for, with the climate focus more with Rebecca, and with Patrick, this importance of being certified under Rainforest Alliance. But we would be welcome to hear your description of the Avishkar Group. Sanchan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm a partner with Avishkar Capital. Avishkar Capital is a fund management business of the Avishkar Group. Within the Avishkar Group, besides fund management, we also have credit businesses which lend to either, which show microfinance, so lend small ticket loans, or lend to SMEs. And we also have a consulting business. I am part of the fund management business, and that's really what I'm going to talk about. We started about 20 years back doing impact investing, one of the first in the world, we think. We're largely early stage venture capital investors in relatively unconventional kind of businesses which can scale up and provide financial returns, but also create a lot of social impact on the ground. So we traditionally focused on socioeconomic impact, on livelihood generation, on reducing risks and vulnerabilities of the low-income population. And over a period of time, besides doing early-stage venture capital investing, we've also raised now funds which do mezzanine or debt financing, and a fund which is now focusing on the nature-based solution, and that's the one that I'm leading right now. Which is why we're participating in this conversation as well. So Avishkar, we've had being an impact investor, we've had a pretty strong sort of impact focused, largely on communities. We have a framework that we call a systematic impact framework, which uses a theory of change for every investment we make to try and assess what's the final outcome you can do based on what are the inputs and what programs you can run and what outputs can you measure. And we're hoping to apply the same principles in what we're trying to do in the landscape space as well. So let me tell you a little bit about the Landscapes Fund. We call this the Carbon First Fund. This is a fund which will invest in nature-based enterprises with the primary objective of sequestering carbon, which the fund seeks to get access to, and then which it will distribute to its investors. This fund will invest in Asia. That will be South Asia and Southeast Asia, emerging and frontier countries. So in South Asia, that will be India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Indonesia. In Southeast Asia, that will be Indonesia. In South Asia, there's India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. In Southeast Asia, that will be Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. The fund will invest in 3 categories of assets. One will be forestry or agroforestry, so afforestation, reforestation, revegetation kind of projects in community lands, or concession lands. Agroforestry, we think, will be a very large sector in which we want to invest, working with smallholder farmers, helping them do agroforestry projects in private lands. Get the benefit of those assets, while the carbon credits is what the fund therefore monetizes. We'll also invest in wetlands and mangrove restorations. And the third category we're looking at is regenerative agriculture, preserving soil carbon. So these are the sectors of kind of projects that we look to invest in. I think the value that we seek to bring in this sector is coming in as a private equity style investor, bringing in capital for restoration of forests or preservation of soil carbon, with the monetization mechanism primarily for the carbon markets. The assets that this fund will build with its investments, the intention is for those assets to actually belong to the community, except for the carbon credits. All the trees, the produced from the trees, the horticulture products, anything, NTFPs, anything that comes out is expected to belong to the community, and the community essentially assigns the rights to the carbon to the fund, which the fund then monetizes. So I think from a impact investing point of view, we think this is quite powerful because it addresses both climate adaptation and mitigation. In one fund, it creates direct impact on livelihoods of the communities involved. At the same time, the monetization is actually from a different market altogether, not from a business with the communities per se. So that's the fund. So Lucy, your question was two of the important things. I think from our perspective and this kind of learning across the last 20 years, I think the most important thing we look at is the passion and the drive of the entrepreneur. And the alignment of mission with what the entrepreneur seeks to do. So we think, our whole philosophy is really around entrepreneurship-led development, and we kind of put the entrepreneur at the core. So even in this sector, when we invest, we're looking to invest in entrepreneurs and businesses started by entrepreneurs, not just projects, which are managed by multiple people. So that's, that I think is one of the things. The second bit I would say would be around sort of how is the impact built within the value chain, within the business itself. And I keep calling them businesses because that's what we really invest in. And we want to see the impact really built into the business, because our intention is that we will scale the impact, and the impact is only scaled if the business also scales, and both of them parallelly scale if they're joined at the hip. So these are the two sort of things that we look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanchan. I think really interesting to see the scope of where you're investing, and also the model that you're using to invest to sort of keep assets within communities, but sort of get outside markets to then finance activities. So thank you very much, and thank you also to Rebecca and Patrick. If anyone has any questions that they'd like to raise to our investors now, please do. I've got one from Eric to Sanchan, actually. Are there plans to expand to the Africa market?
Yes, I should have mentioned that. So we do have a fund which invests in Africa. We have an office based in East Africa in Nairobi, and our debt fund actually does invest in Africa. Our nature-based solutions fund, unfortunately, the first phase of that fund, we are not looking to do Africa because it's quite an innovative and a first-time thing for us. But I have spoken to many entrepreneurs from Africa who are quite keen that we look at that market. So we're hoping we'll be able to invest also in NBS in near future in Africa. But the debt fund already invests in Africa.
Thank you. We have any further questions? I think if we don't have any further questions, I think they may come up in our discussion groups, in the breakout groups.